So at some point, podcast became a legitimate form of entertainment, became a legitimate source of news and conversation for people. And I can't figure out exactly when that happened.
If it became a legitimate form of entertainment, how did we miss the boat?
Well, my guess is that approximately a year ago, we may have delegitimized the whole format.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. When I was prepping for this, I must have looked at 10 lists of best podcasts in
yeah.
different areas, and they went all the way down to like one had a list of 100. I'm like, we have to be somewhere on the bottom. And
Did you
it
really think
worked.
that? I don't know, man.
No.
That seems really optimistic to me. Because
I mean,
especially,
some are pretty freaking regional. And I mean, I don't know what we are, but
yeah, I got to tell you, I don't think we're even regional. Let's put it this way: I am not close to the top five most listened to podcast in my house. So I can't imagine where I fall. Like in the neighborhood, nah. In the city of Joliet, no. State, no.
oh
But
well.
I'd say we're in the top five podcasts that you and I listen to.
I don't even know if that's true.
I top five. I would say, yeah, it's probably me only because I have to edit, so I listen to it quite a bit. Oh fuck. I don't know. So I don't know. I'd like to know your history with podcasts.
Okay.
Uh, what, can you remember when you started listening to podcasts?
Yeah, roughly. I mean, I feel like it was during COVID, actually. So I guess I don't know if that's recent or not compared to yours, but I remember just wanting to get out of the house and either walk or run and needing something to listen to. And there's times I just wasn't in the mood for music,
Mm.
and I had heard about podcasts and I was like, fine. Because I'm always late. If it's popular or trendy, I tend to not go there. But the first one that I listened to, and I listened to it quite a bit, was one called F, as in fuck, I assume, this movie. And there's a
Hmm.
couple guys that just talked about movies, and then they'd have a theme for each one. And I really got into it. Some cool stuff, like they did some Clive Barker stuff, and I mean, it was all over the board, and things that I had no ideas about with movies. And I found it to be really entertaining and informative.
Yeah, so I would say that COVID is not early to the format.
Yeah.
And and I don't know that I would have said that before I kind of looked into my own history and looked into the podcasts that I listened to and realized just how long I've been listening to podcasts. So I would say that the podcast I've listened to the longest and most consistently is, ironically, Doug Loves Movies, another movie
Hmm.
podcast. I looked that up and it's a little hazy, but it appears that he started podcasting in 2000.
Wow.
So that's, 25 years ago as opposed to 5 years ago when you kind of started listening to stuff. I probably started listening relatively close to the beginning of his podcast. I'm going to say maybe '04 or '05, but the truth is, I feel like I was listening to him early in his podcasting career because he's completely changed the format of the way of what his episodes are like. And I remember what I believe was the original format, which was more like a panel podcast where he would have two or three guests, usually fellow stand-up comedians, because Doug Benson is a stand-up. And I think he started podcasting as a promotional tool that was cheap, that he could just put out episodes and then he could plug wherever he happened to be, because he's like a professional stand-up comic. He's always traveling. It was a way for him to, basically plug his dates. And he started out talking about movies with his guests, and as a little segment, they would play like a trivia game. And
Hmm.
if you listen to this week's episode, which I haven't gotten to because I'm about 2 months behind, but his format now is introducing his guests, asking them to make a movie recommendation, and then like three or sometimes even four movie trivia games. It's all movie trivia. and then it's all his plugs. So he does his plugs kind of at the beginning. It's still basically just an engine for him to plug his stuff, but he's really funny, and the people he puts on are very funny. He still has guests, but instead of interviewing them, they do these trivia games. But if my recollection is correct, that means I've been listening to at least that podcast for like 20 years, or maybe even more than 20 years.
Wow.
Which
Once
is,
again, you beat me. You beat me to the race.
yeah, I'm not sure if that's a win or not. Especially when I describe that podcast and how that's the one that I've stayed with forever. I've listened to some off and on. I listen for a while, I stop listening, or I pick up a new one. Doug Loves Movies is the only one that I constantly listen to.
Now that you mention it, I may have been a touch before COVID because I've played fantasy football since I guess I've been playing for more than 25 years in the same league. And I don't have time to research like all these fuckers in my league do.
Right.
So I would drive a lot because I've always lived far from where I've worked for whatever reason. So I'd listen to satellite radio, same thing, and I'd listen to the fantasy football channels just to like through osmosis get information that I otherwise wasn't finding out. And then one of the areas, and I'm not going to get into it too much because a lot of them suck, but there's a shit ton of podcasts on fantasy football, and I'd
Yeah, I
listen
can
to
imagine.
when I went away from XM or satellite radio. I started to listen to some podcasts for the very same reason. It wasn't like I really enjoyed them. I just needed to download information into my head in 30-minute chunks. Then I started gravitating. That'll be the theme here. Is I just need something that's kind of funny. So I
Yeah.
gravitated towards ones that weren't even that great for advice, but they were funny because the ones that give great advice are a bunch of fucking dorks, and I can't stand listening to them.
I feel the same way just about sports radio in general. Can't listen to it.
Yes.
I just can't listen. I can't listen to the hosts, but more importantly, I cannot listen to people who call in.
Oh yeah.
And in a podcast, that's less of a problem, of course, because they're usually pre-recorded. But you still, the problem is the podcasts are hosted by the people who used to call into the sports radio shows.
Yep.
So I cannot handle it. It's one of the areas I just don't listen to, either on terrestrial radio, satellite radio, or podcasts.
Totally with you.
And my last two fantasy football leagues, I think I auto-drafted because I didn't want to do the research. So I've definitely given up any thoughts of winning any of those leagues at this point.
Yeah, I'll make like my first couple of draft picks and then turn on auto draft, and I tend to do better when auto draft is doing it. So
Yeah, well, I don't do worse, I can tell you that. So what kind of category, you kind of started to talk about that, but what would you say as you sit here now is the favorite category of podcasts that you like to listen to?
yeah, I think my favorite category is music and music history, easily. Not listening to music, but the history behind like albums or songs, and we'll get into it when we do our draft. But like I've had, there's a couple that I'll get in, and I'll name one that I don't think you're going to draft. I mean, this is a long form podcast. Shoot, what's his name? I'll figure out his name before I finish my thoughts. It's called Cocaine and Rhinestones. He's done 2 seasons so far. The first season was each episode was about an hour to an hour and a half about some either unsavory event in country music history or some really fascinating stuff. So, and then the second season was a truly long form. It was a couple hour long episodes and all about George Jones and Tammy Wynette and their long history together.
I
So
remember
that
you
one
talking
was,
about, yeah, I
yeah,
remember you
that one
talking
was
about that one.
fascinating to me. I'll get his name in 1 second. He's the son of a really famous country music artist. He also does Your Favorite Artist Sucks or something like that. He does another podcast, which I don't like that one so much. It's a little too snarky for me, which is kind of amazing for me to say.
Yeah, I listen to some music podcasts, and I mean we talked about one in particular we brought up in the past, which is Song Exploder, which is a really cool and I
Yeah.
don't those episodes are not particularly long. It's one of the reasons I like it. I think is because they're fairly short and to the point, and they break down a single song. And the other thing I like about it is I really pick and choose that one. So when I see whatever song or artist they're using for Song Exploder to break down the song itself, that lets me decide whether I'm going to listen to it or not. Because if it's a band I don't like, then I just skip it. I don't feel bad about it. Like some podcasts, you feel like you need to listen to every episode, or maybe you're going to miss something. That's certainly not one of those, and I like that. And I do listen to some other music podcasts, but not very many, and again, kind of sporadically. There's one I don't think I ever talked to you about it, but there was one I always thought was kind of cool that I think doesn't exist anymore, but it was called Bizarre Albums.
Mm.
And it was a stand up. It seems like stand up comedians dominate the market for podcasts because it's just a way for them to get their thoughts out. And I think they have a lot of time to kill, especially if they're touring comedians, because there's a lot of time in hotels. But there's a guy named Tony Thaxton. I think he's a stand-up comic. I never heard of him before he was a guest. Frankly, I think he was a guest on Douglas Movies. And he does one of those breakdown podcasts where he takes a single album of music and he goes through the entire history, like who's on it. He lists all the musicians. He talks about the lead up to whatever the album is, but they are bizarre. It's like, that album that Billy Bob Thornton did, or there's a Partridge
Right.
Family Christmas album, or there's a Star Wars album, or those kind of things. He would just find the weirdest, strangest things, and I found that interesting to listen to, as opposed to breaking down just you know Rush's classic album, or Elvis Presley's Live in Vegas or whatever. I kind of like the idea of he'd go through and he'd always pick out something weird or interesting about it, and there'd be some amazing musician playing on this weird, Welcome Back Kotter theme song album or something. And but other than that, which is sporadic, other than Song Exploder, I
Yeah.
haven't listened to a lot of music podcasts. Weirdly,
Mm.
I would say the category I listen to the most about is movies. And it starts with Doug Loves Movies because that's the first one I ever listened to. But they come and go. But there are a couple really cool movie podcasts where they either break down an individual movie or they talk to someone who is an actor or director or something along those lines. And I probably would say that's the most consistent format, or not format, the most consistent theme of a podcast that I listen to would be stuff that is about films.
Yeah, and so the podcaster I was talking about is Tyler Mahan Coe, David Allen Coe's son.
Yes.
And he's now he's turned this into a bit of a music history empire because he's publishing a book now based on season 2, blah blah blah. But Song Exploder is one of my very favorites. It's short, like you said, some really fascinating stuff, even about music that I don't love. But there was a song on one of the Lumineer song. There's an episode on one of the Lumineer songs. I think I may have said this in another episode, but Springsteen loaned them or offered up his horn section for one of the songs, and they have that recorded. And they played the segment where the horns played, and they talked to the two guys from the two main guys of the Lumineers, and they're like, "We felt really bad because the boss like gave us his horn section, and we didn't want to use that. Like they didn't use it,
Oh,
and it does sound different. I mean, it's I'll have to look and see what song it was, but Ophelia. It was the song Ophelia. But then there's another part which, and I love this stuff. You talked about bizarre stuff. There's a segment of the song where the lead singer's voice reaches its peak, like he can't go any higher, and his voice cracks. And I never really paid attention to it. And now every time I hear that
uh,
song, that almost gives me like I can't not hear it anymore. And I think it's really cool. You and I have talked about how we like the imperfections of music, the emotions that come out, and maybe the voice cracks or whatever,
yeah.
where you hear like the chair creaking in the background. It's just something that makes you almost feel like you're there. And Song Exploder does a really great job of highlighting those moments in a song, making them even that much more real to me. So,
I swear, one of the most standout parts of that podcast for me might have been a different Lumineers song. It was
hmm,
certainly another Americana type band where they discussed the fact that they recorded a song in a church, and
hmm,
that part of the song and part of the track, one of the tracks they use is basically the drummer is stomping on the floor, the wooden floor of the church as part of the percussion in the song. And as I sit here, I can't remember if it was Lumineers, but in my head, I always thought it was a Lumineers song that they were talking about at that point. But those kind of things are interesting, and it is clearly from our interviews of musicians in the past. One of the things that intrigues me is just that production, that decision-making process of what are we going to keep in, and what are we not going to put in the song, even though we recorded it, like Bruce Springsteen's horn section. That's got to be a tough call, right? I find that really intriguing, and I'm sure that's what the host of Song Exploder is Hrishikesh Hirway, I think is how you say his name, and I'm sure that it was his curiosity about those things, and also I think his own experience in the music industry that made him think that would be a good topic for a podcast.
But what are your least favorite podcasts?
That actually is the same sort of question I was just going to ask, because I was going to ask you if you listen to political podcasts, because for me, yeah, that's probably my least favorite. Recently, I have been listening to a couple political podcasts just because I find it difficult watching the television news, both timing wise and also just frustration wise. So if I want political news, the best way to get it in a concentrated form, I think, is through a podcast at this point. So I've listened to a couple of those podcasts, and they do provide a lot of information, but I can only take them for so long, and I don't listen to them religiously. One of them, there's one called Midas Touch, which apparently has become, they say it's more downloaded than Rogan's podcast at this point. Which kind of runs hand in hand with all the demonstrations and everything that's been going on with No Kings and what have you. And I appreciate that podcast because they play stuff from both the left and the right, and they tend not to edit anything in terms of sound bites that they play. So you hear what Trump is saying, or you hear what MAGA politicians are saying, kind of uncut. Which isn't to say that this is an even-handed podcast. It is definitely, part of the resistance, for lack of a better word. But they put out like 3 or 4 things every day. They put out a bunch of 15 or 20-minute podcast episodes, which I think are also YouTube episodes, video episodes, because a lot of times he talks about playing a clip. So I assume there's a video clip that goes on. And then there's an hour-long podcast, I think every day. I don't know. It's more than once a week, that's for sure. I never listen to the hour-long one because it's just too much. It's too overwhelming, and that's one of the only ones I will listen to at all. And that's just to try to try to stay updated a little bit.
I don't listen to any politics podcasts. I have an admitted weakness that even though I always talk about the idea of needing the context for any decision or just to have a full understanding, like I hate when you hear something, especially from your kids, that's so clearly driven by some lame-brained idea on TikTok or something, and so singularly focused. I'm like, go look up the stats around that, or look up more about that situation. But I can't stand to listen to the right. I just cannot. Like, I have a fundamental flaw that I can't envision liking or having a conversation with someone who's MAGA. I mean, I don't understand the brain process for that way of thinking. I just don't. And I admit it's a flaw. And, but I get so freaking angry when I listen to that stuff. And then I don't want to perpetuate that in myself by only listening to stuff that I support, because then I'm running counter to what I'm telling others to do. So
yeah, you don't want to create your own bubble, right? I mean, you don't want to be completely shut off from. And I try, and occasionally I'll try to. And it's when I say I try, like when I'm at the gym, I'll walk into the locker room and the TV will be tuned to Fox News, and I'll stand and listen for a while. And the one thing I always take out from it is hey, if that's all you listen to, no wonder you think the way you think or feel the way you feel if you're a MAGA voter, because the stuff they say is outlandish, but it's nonstop. So I do try to plug in occasionally, but I can't do it. Like if I'm driving in the car and I've got a distance to go, the last thing I want to do is hear, frankly, either side of it. And I do, as I said, just recently I've been listening to a little bit more in terms of political podcasts, but it's not going to last very long. I'd rather just try to read what I can in the more balanced news sites that I find online, and The Economist, and places that are considered more neutral, and just avoid the podcast. But as I said before, the other thing I don't listen to is sports. I don't listen to any sports podcast, which is consistent with the fact that I never really used to listen to sports talk radio either. And that's just because, again, I just feel like everybody's kind of, these days especially, everybody needs to ramp everything up so it's a life and death argument over who should start at quarterback for the Steelers or whatever. And I just and these days I don't want to watch Steelers news because I am not happy with what's gone on there at quarterback. So,
You got a mega head.
Yeah, speaking of that. So the other stuff I listen to occasionally is, I listen to comic book podcasts. There's some fun ones. There's one that I've probably listened to the longest of anything other than Doug Loves Movies, which is just this former married couple who break down and have been breaking down X-Men comics. I think they started with the very first, what they called the New X-Men, which was, there was an X-Men in the Golden Age, which they never really covered much, but then Chris Claremont kind of took over the team, the comic I want to say in the late 70s, and changed it completely. So they break down issue by issue and title by title. They talk about X-Men. It's all they talk about. It's crazy. It's been going on. That's been at least 10 years. And they're not anywhere near caught up to what's out there. It's hilarious. So I listen to that fairly consistently. There's another one that talks about new releases of comic books, which I recently started listening to only because I've recently kind of returned to the comic store, so it always makes me curious. But I tend to stick to stand-up comics podcasting about shit they want to talk about, is what it usually comes out to be. So again, lots of movies, a little bit of music. The TV rewatch podcast is another category I've listened to off and on throughout.
Neither of us mentioned our podcast.
No. I wonder what category we fall into. I mean, we're definitely a pop culture podcast, right?
Yep.
Unfortunately, I don't think we're as funny as the professional comedians who do their podcasting on a regular basis. So I don't know. I like our podcast. I really do. Yeah. I think other people should listen, please, a little bit.
Yeah.
Go on, man.
We'll try to be more funny.
So
we're only in season 8. We should be able to turn it off.
Right. It's only been 70 something episodes that we've done. We'll figure out how to be funny eventually. Before we go into our big podcast draft, I have one final question for you, because I think you've alluded to it, but I wanted to know, like, what are your podcast listening habits? When is it that you listen to podcasts the most?
Yeah, it's usually when I work out and I feel like I've overloaded on music, and I'll be truthful. I don't want to ruin it because I don't want you to steal my pick. I will talk about it during the draft.
Gotcha.
But I listen to the most mindless, like I've played it in the car with others in the car. And they're like, oh my God, this is so dumb. But it's just like, it has the same format like we do. We didn't steal it from it. It's just, so it gives me like milestones along my workout. It's like, I know, so it's just, it has the structure that allows me to move along and know where I'm at in the workout without staring at the time ticking away very slowly. And at times it makes me laugh, because there's 3 guys on it. We'll get there, but they have a rapport that does remind me of me and you. You and I can be funny, like especially just in the moment. And these
not
3,
intentionally.
Not intentionally. But these 3 seem like they're really buddies off air, and it doesn't seem scripted. They leave certain screw ups in there. It just makes me, it was the one that I felt, you know what? We could do this. We won't be at their level because they have like 3 producers and all this other stuff, but it's the rapport. It's just the conversation. And that's what we try to do well.
Yeah. It's funny because I don't listen much when I exercise. And there's 2 negatives for me. One is in the warm weather, my primary mode of exercise is riding my bicycle. And I find it even, so I don't wear headphones when I ride my bicycle because that's frowned upon and probably a bad idea safety wise. But I do have a helmet that has what they call bone conduction headphones, which means it plays through these things that drop down and kind of rest against your cheek. And it's fine, but it isn't perfect for, it's not like listening to surround sound, you know, it's not noise canceling. It's not supposed to be. That's the whole idea. But I find it hard to hear people speaking when I'm riding my bike if there's any traffic at all around. And unfortunately, there's typically traffic around where and when I'm riding. So I don't really listen to podcasts when I ride. And when I'm in a gym, when I'm working on the elliptical, I think I may have mentioned this in an earlier episode, I tend to listen to music based upon beats per minute, so that I run kind of in time to the music that I listen to. And if I listen to a podcast, that doesn't happen. And frankly, when I exercise in the gym on elliptical, I usually like to kind of lose myself in music as opposed to think about what's going on. So I don't do it much when I exercise, and I live really close to my office. So the fact is that I listen to podcasts generally in like 5 to 10 minute snippets, which is probably why something like Doug Loves Movies appeals to me, because you can listen to that and stop it right in the middle of what's going on and you're not really missing anything. You know, there's no narrative that you're breaking up. But that's kind of how I listened to the 3 or 4 podcasts I subscribed to for years and years. Or when I was driving to court or going to Chicago for something work related, I'd have more time to listen. Frankly, since we started doing this podcast about a year ago, I listened to other podcasts less. And I'm sure that has everything to do with the fact that I listen to ours in trying to edit it so much that I just don't have the desire to listen to somebody else talk after having to listen to me and you talk for hours, it feels like sometimes.
I'm offended.
It's funny how, although, and oddly, I think I definitely listen more than you do, because you've mentioned before you don't like to hear your own voice even when you do it. But I do enjoy listening to our podcast. I mean, unfortunately, usually it's because I'm going through it trying to, you know, get rid of ums and ahs and long pauses and what have you. But I'm rarely embarrassed by the stuff I hear. So I guess that's good.
I've gotten better at hearing my own voice. It's the stupid thoughts that come out of my head.
Yeah, well, like I said, I think maybe that should be the subtitle of our podcast. Should be Third Song In. Rarely embarrassing.
I thought you were going to say stupid thoughts that come out of our head.
Also, it's just nothing but subtitles at this point.
All right, so let's do this draft. I don't think we're going to have much overlap.
No, I agree. I am, looking at my own list. I was like, yeah, I don't think I've ever heard Chris mention any of these podcasts. So I think we'll be able to get our top picks. I need to flip the coin. I'm the keeper of the coin in these drafts, and I am flipping it now.
All right, tails.
It's heads again. I'm telling you, man. I've won like the last 3 flips. You may want to start flipping the coin. I swear I'm not cheating, but I feel bad every time I say that.
Big cheater head.
But strategically speaking, I think I'm safe in giving you the very first pick and taking 2 in a row, because I can't imagine you and I have the same first pick.
I will take Doug Loves Movies.
You son of a bitch. That's awesome. Yeah, that's really funny.
I've never listened to it once.
But that's my pick.
You're up.
That's awesome. All right. So I will say this. My pick was not going to be Doug Loves Movies. But again, that's because I didn't think you would pick it. My pick is actually I believe, first podcast that Hrishikesh Hirway, he goes by Rishi. So I'm going to say Rishi Hirway. I think that's the closest I've come to the correct pronunciation. He did a podcast with an actor named Josh Malina, which was an episode-by-episode breakdown of The West Wing, which is one of my favorite TV shows, network TV shows anyway. and they called it West Wing Weekly. And they started with the pilot, and they would occasionally have guests, other actors or production people, directors from the show, because Josh Malina had an in for all of that. He's a working actor. He's still on TV now. But they put it out every week, and that's what it was. It's just they talked about the episodes. Rishi is a huge fan. That's why he wanted to do it. I think he met Josh Malina somewhere socially and just said, "Hey, I have this idea," and Molina jumped in on it. And they ended up doing. I want to say they finished it up. It was during COVID, so they had plenty of time, frankly, to do the work. They went through every episode of all 7 seasons, and it is my favorite podcast. It was the one I liked the most. Interestingly, like the show, it had a beginning and an end. You can go back and listen to them, and I've thought about going back and re-listening to a rewatch podcast, but it is definitely the one that I religiously listen to. I didn't let a week go by. I always wanted to listen to it the week it came out, and that's very unlike me when it comes to podcasts. I'm months behind on most of them because I don't have a ton of time to listen to them. So my first pick, second pick in the draft is West Wing Weekly. And my second pick is a podcast that is in the same podcast network, and I learned about through West Wing Weekly, and that is a podcast called Ear Hustle. Ear Hustle is I think it's an award-winning podcast. I know they submitted it and won a contest to be on this podcast network. That's how they first came about. But it's a woman who used to volunteer. She's a visual artist, and she used to volunteer at a prison in California. And she and one of the prisoners came up with this idea of doing a podcast about life in prison. It's been going on for years now. The co-host was actually pardoned by the governor. I don't think it was Newsom. I think it was the governor before him in California. But now he's out, and they use different people inside the prison to talk about what's going on in the prison itself. But they also have now done episodes where they talk to women that are incarcerated in the California, I can't remember, it's California Detention Center for Women or something like that. But they do all kinds of different topics about what prison life is like, and it is an interesting look into that whole world, and I find it to be a very, very enlightening podcast to listen to.
Good choices. I knew neither of those.
Yep.
But I'm going to go with a similar host. I thought for sure you'd screw me over like I screwed you over, but you didn't.
I should.
I'm going with Song Exploder. That's easily my favorite. I haven't looked, but he just did one with Jeff Tweedy as a special episode. It's called How to Write a Single Song or something like that. That should be a good listen. And just listening through the artists, he still covers, there's quite a few I don't know. I won't even get into who I don't know, but there's always, every 3 or 4 names are ones that I know. And even the artists that I haven't known too well, I've gotten something out of it. So, and it's short. It's perfect for my listening habits for podcasts. And then my second one, you might not be surprised by this, is a Canadian podcast. The title is Ongoing History of New Music. It's done by a Canadian. I don't know if he's a DJ, but he has the voice of a DJ. It's the only thing that sort of I don't love is it's very, very scripted. It's got the cliffhangers before a commercial and then everything else. But this guy, Alan Cross, is incredibly plugged in. He's had a long history with music. Just some really fascinating topics. For example, the latest episode it's called The Second Voice. It's when a really well-known lead singer of a band has someone else sing a song, just stuff like that. And I think he's got over 1,000 episodes, so he continues to come up with interesting stuff. It's a great listen, also short, but very, very informative stuff. So the ongoing history of new music and Song Exploder. That's my second and third pick.
My next pick is easy, and then it gets really hard after that because I only listen to so many podcasts regularly. But my number, I guess number 6. Where are we now? Yes.
Yeah.
Sixth in the draft is the podcast Films to be Buried
Huh.
which I think I've talked to you about. It's hosted by one of the stars of Ted Lasso, one of the creators actually of Ted Lasso. He's a stand-up, he's also an actor, he's a producer, he's a writer. His name's Brett Goldstein. It is to me, a really interesting movie podcast. He does have a guest every week. Sometimes these days, he does sometimes get famous guests because he's become more and more famous because of how Ted Lasso blew up. And he's also now he's been playing a supporting role, like a minor role in Shrinking, which is the show on Apple TV Plus that I think I recommended a season or two ago with Harrison Ford and oh shoot, who's the guy from How I Met Your Mother, the tall dude from
Oh,
Forgetting Sarah Marshall. What the fuck
yeah.
is his name?
Uh, Keep going. I'll find it for you.
All right. Anyway, Films to be Buried with has a guest every week, but also what Goldstein does is he has a series of questions he asks each guest. And if they're a brand new guest, he has a series of questions. And if someone has come back, then he has a different series of questions. But they're all for a new guest, it's kind of basic. What's the first movie you remembered? What is the movie that makes you cry the most? What's the movie that you like that nobody else likes? So there's a whole series. It's about 5 or 6 questions, and so he has a very specific format for every interview with a brand new guest. When he has a returning guest, it gets a little different. And he's a good interviewer. He's a really funny guy. He is nothing like the character Roy Kent in Ted Lasso. If you've ever watched the show, Roy Kent's this gruff, professional soccer player who kind of treats people. He's got a heart of gold, of course, but he swears a lot and what have you. Brett Goldstein's voice is even kind of lighter and not as rough sounding as the character he plays. And he's a very thoughtful guy, and obviously he's a creator. So that's who you get to hear on the podcast, as opposed to the character of Roy Kent. But I really enjoy it. It is one where I pick and choose. Sometimes I pick and choose depending on the guests, but that has more to do with the fact that I just have limited time to listen to podcasts, so I just kind of try to find one that makes the most sense to me. So that's my number 6. Number 7 becomes very difficult for me, and I am going to say that I'm going to pick one of the two that I still listen to, even though I think the quality is a little spotty. But I'm going to pick the podcast Comic Book Club, which is, I mentioned it in general earlier. It's just a podcast about new releases, new issues of comics that come out. So it's just kind of a heads up. Hey, here's what's going on. So there's three hosts of it. They're lifelong friends. Apparently, they've been doing it for 20 years. Like, they've been doing this podcast much longer than I've only been listening to it for maybe a year or two recently. And it's pretty good chemistry. So listening to them talk, they all have their roles to play. And it is really just a geek podcast about comic books. But I do enjoy it. And these days, I probably listen to that almost as much as I listen to any of the other ones I mentioned. So that leads to you 2 more picks.
So mine are pretty easy because I'm running out of choices. I will go with F This Movie, which is the first podcast I listened to. It's hosted by Patrick Bromley. He has various guests on all the time, a couple regular guests. I haven't listened to it in a while, but I have fond memories of listening to it. So we'll go with F This Movie. And then my final pick is the dumb one, the Spitballers. 3 guys out of Arizona. They also do a podcast about fantasy football that's quite popular. But this is one that I just turn to for mindless entertainment. They have stuff that they have their own website, they're on Patreon. So folks will send in questions for a segment called Would You Rather? So they'll have like the most bizarre would you rather questions ever. And then they'll talk through the possibilities, and it gets into just total ridiculousness. And then they'll do stuff like, it's like that game where you'd get a word and you'd make up a definition, and then they'd read them out and you try to guess which one was the real one. They do that about movies. They'd get a movie title, and then they'd write a brief blurb about what the movie was about. and just fun, stupid, entertaining stuff. So the Spitballers is my final choice for the podcast draft.
Cool. That's one I haven't listened to. It's
I
funny
wouldn't
too.
rush to it, but it's funny.
It's it's funny because there are some podcasts that are so overwhelmingly popular. Like if you go on the list, and none of them made our draft at all. Like I would assume that people writing in are going to be like, why didn't you pick this one or why didn't you pick that one? And there are a few that I started to listen to, but they wore on me so much that I just can't stand to listen to them now. Like Maron's podcast, Mark Maron, which is WTF. It's probably one of the most famous podcasts in the world. He's literally interviewed presidents, and he gets famous guests, and he is generally kind of a funny guy. But his shtick has worn on me so much I can't stand to listen to him talk because it's very woe is me. He's always be kind of bitching and griping about
Yeah.
stuff. And during the period of time when I was listening regularly to that, he just, if God forbid you got somebody who was on the cast of Saturday Night Live, because he would just immediately jump into, how they auditioned and how he got fucked over by Lauren Michaels. And I just like, there are people that I like that I just wouldn't want to listen to as guests on his show because he would just grill them about that shit. And the other one that I think is really popular is Smartless. Have you ever listened to
hmm
Smartless?
A couple
It,
times. It was too much for me.
Yeah, and I like all three of those guys individually. I like their work. They're all working actors, and they're very funny people. I think Jason Bateman is a really talented dude.
Yeah.
Um, but again, they have a shtick, and after about maybe 20 episodes of listening to them and listening to Jason Bateman talk about playing golf, and them kind of making fun of oh geez, what's the guy the guy who's gay? They would always make kind of a funny, we're
Oh
all
yeah.
buddies joke about how he was gay, and he was up for it. It wasn't like I don't think it offended him at all, but I was just like, you can only listen to those things so often. Now the positive side for them was how they get guests, man. They get high powered. If you're in the entertainment world and you're a big deal, chances are you want to be on Smartless. But it could not make even though I did listen to it for a bit, it didn't even come close to my list just because I got tired of their approach. So, which may be the pot calling the kettle black. Because I'm so tempted for my 10th pick to pick Third Song In, but
You
I'm not
should,
going to do
man.
it.
That would ensure that somebody picks us.
Yeah, you know what? I'm picking Third Song In. I like the hosts. They can wear on you a little bit sometimes, but I think they cover a lot of stuff. I think they speak more to a specific generation than other podcasts, which is probably to their detriment. But I think they're pretty funny guys. And here's the thing: those hosts of Third Song In, I think they're trying really hard.
Uh,
So that's going to be my pick. I had a couple others, but I've decided now we can put it in our advertising that we made the top 10 podcast list of a podcast. So that's our draft of podcasts that we've come up with what I'm going to call a top 10 list of podcasts. Again, so I can market that and say we made a top 10 list of podcasts. But I imagine it doesn't match up with many people's list of best podcasts. And I imagine many people would have drafted differently than us. And I would suggest that you contact us. Email us at thirdsongin@gmail.com and let us know who you would have picked first or second or what your top 10 list of podcasts is. You can also message us in Facebook or on our website. But I'd love to hear other suggestions for podcasts that we might like to listen to. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on our draft.
all right. And our next segment is new for season 8, old for Tom and me. It's called The Loft of Wisdom.
You better open up your eyes, babe, because fools do get wise.
We will take turns suggesting a great quote, whether from a movie, TV show, or usually in my case, a song lyric. So I'm going to start because once again, I like yours better than mine, but I don't care. I just listened to this song yesterday. It's a sad song, shockingly. And I think it's such a subtle zinger that wanted to include it. So it's from a song called We're Not Here by the Roadside Graves, who have less than 200 followers on YouTube Music. So get out there and listen to them, people. It's basically the inspiration for the title of the album it comes from, I Won't Cry Alone. But it's a simple one. It's if you leave me, I won't cry. I won't cry alone, which tells me that if you leave me, I'm going to hook up with somebody else and cry on their shoulder. So fuck you.
That's awesome. All right, Roadside Graves quote goes on the Loft of Wisdom. You can find our list of quotes for this season at thirdsonginpodcast.com. My choice for the Loft is a quote from the Comedy Central roast of Bob Saget. Unfortunately, Bob Saget died a couple years ago, and something caused me to rewatch the roast just a couple weekends ago. And first of all, it's hilarious. I love those Comedy Central roasts in general. But Greg Giraldo was a stand-up comic, also passed away probably 10 years ago at this point. He was so funny. It seems like a real sad story because I know he had a wife and at least one kid. And I think he was just fighting mental health issues. But he was absolutely hilarious. And as is usually the case, when guys first get up on the dais to roast whoever is being roasted, they also throw some bombs at some of the people who are on the dais with him, some of the other comics. And he said about Gilbert Gottfried the following. He said, "Gilbert, you have the sex appeal of a school bus fire." And it was one of the top zingers I heard on that whole episode. I loved it. I also loved Greg Giraldo, and I thought it was a nice tribute to him because it's one of the funniest things I've ever heard him say. So that will go up on our Loft of Wisdom as well.
Perfect.
I am pleased to say we don't have anything for post facto this episode, which means arguably we've made no mistakes. In reality, we just probably can't remember or don't realize the mistakes we've made. Next is staff picks.
Just around the corner from you.
Staff picks is where we make a recommendation of something either brand new or coming out soon, and we're going to tell people what we're excited about. Chris, tell me what you're excited about.
All right. I am excited about a new EP released for the band Wildorado. They did an R vinyl session, the second one. If folks don't know Wildorado, they're out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. A little more pop than I'm usually inclined toward, but their stuff is catchy as hell. There's a song that I've put on like every playlist called Surefire. It's the acoustic version, or piano version, I think is what it's called. Tom, go listen to it and you'll be like, oh yeah, you put that on every fucking playlist, douchebag.
I definitely know we've got some Wildorado floating around there.
Yep. And 6 songs, live performances. The last one, Take Some Time, is my favorite. It's just a nice intro. If you haven't listened to them, check out the R vinyl session. I think in general, those are high quality. And I was excited to see them have another one out there. So that just came out.
Cool. Well, based upon our ever-changing production schedule, this episode should drop on July 21st. It is still June as we record this. So my staff pick is a film that hasn't come out yet, but by the time you hear us, it should have been out. The release date I see is July 11 for the film Sovereign. This movie is written and directed by someone I've not heard of before, Christian Schwiegel. It stars Nick Offerman and Dennis Quaid, as well as a young actor named Jacob Tremblay, who I believe has been in a bunch of stuff that I don't know about. The short description of the movie that I read says that 2 anti-government extremists face off against a small town police officer or police chief. That's Dennis Quaid. The two are Nick Offerman and Jacob Tremblay as a father-son. I've seen one scene from this. There's no real actual trailer out, but they've released one scene. I think this is on the film festival circuit right now. So I guess that's how they kind of pre-advertise. The scene I saw is so fucking intense, man. I don't know that I'm going to feel good when this movie is over, but it looks like a tour de force for Nick Offerman. Like it's not the funny Parks and Rec Nick Offerman. It's not the Scotch commercial Nick Offerman. He basically is talking to a big auditorium, a big room full of people anyway, and he's just talking about the necessity to use violence, and he's talking about it in terms of basically his rights as an American, and it apparently it hits real close to home these days. And based upon that single scene, I'm telling you, this one looks like one gut punch of a film. So I am looking forward to seeing it, although I have a feeling that when it's done, I'm going to be very nervous and upset. But it does look like, potential Oscar bait type stuff for Nick Offerman, because wow, that one scene was amazing.
I was just talking about Randy Quaid in a staff meeting yesterday and how he's gone a little off the tracks. So when you first described this, I assumed he'd be one of the bad guys, because I saw a video of him where he's just got this monster beard. He looks like he hasn't
Oh
done
yeah.
any grooming in a long time. But so he's.
Well, I don't think he's working, dude. It's Dennis Quaid. It's his brother that's in this.
Oh, I
Plays
thought
the
you said
sheriff.
Randy. I thought you said Randy.
Yeah, no, it's Dennis. Because to me, frankly, this movie might be about Randy Quaid.
Yeah, that's what
It may be a biopic.
Yeah, but I swear you said it says right there, Dennis, and I read Randy. My bad. Hey, you know what?
Just listen to me.
Never
Listen
mind.
to the words I say.
Never mind.
Yeah, it seems like Dennis Quaid's a great choice to cast
Yeah.
as like a small town sheriff.
Yes.
Nick Offerman, I can see him playing the role that I saw. He's got that deep voice, and he certainly come across as like a Midwestern, survivalist type. But man, is it intense again. And I think I said the title, but just to repeat it, it's called Sovereign, and it dropped on July 11, according to the schedule that I saw.
I'll just stop talking since I can't keep the Quaids apart.
It's hard to keep your Quaids apart. All right, let's do playlist picks. Every episode, we each pick a song for our season-long companion playlist that goes out on Spotify and Apple Music and YouTube Music and Amazon Music, as well as others. We tried to pick a song for the playlist that kind of lines up with the theme of the episode. I am stretching as far as you can stretch on this one, but my choice for the playlist is, it's called two different things depending on where you hear it. It's called This Old Porch. I've also heard it referred to and seen it referred to as the Front Porch Song. The one I'm recommending is from Live Dinner Reunion, and the song is actually co-written, and in this case sung by Robert Earl Keen. He co-wrote it with Lyle Lovett, who is a podcast favorite here. And I've always loved this song. The first time I heard it was on, I think, Lyle Lovett's very first album. And on that album, it's listed as This Old Porch. On a lot of Robert Earl Keen stuff, live performances and otherwise, he calls it the Front Porch Song. The reason I'm picking it is that it turns out Robert Earl Keen, kind of a critically acclaimed podcaster. He's got an Americana music podcast. I didn't know that. I'm now going to listen to it because I think he's a really funny, smart dude. This performance, which was from 2016, is fantastic. It's a duet with Lyle Lovett. They trade verses. And it basically was written when they were in college I believe they went to Texas A&M. I think they were Aggies. And it's about the porch where they would sit and kind of pluck on their guitars and talk about the future. My favorite line, and he says it in this live performance to the audience, he says, they go on that porch and that's where they would be talking about where we were going to move after our parents got our grades. And I just think he's really funny. There's a very up-tempo studio version on The Party Never Ends, which is another Robert Earl Keen album. But I would truthfully say my favorite is Lyle Lovett's version from the album called Lyle Lovett. But on this podcast, or on this playlist, we're going to put the live version from Live Dinner Reunion in 2016 by Robert Earl Keen.
Great choice, and inspired my choice. So you can say that you inspired me.
Fine.
Because I had no clue where I was going to go with this. And then when I saw your choice and your rationalization, I was like, who's a musician who's a podcast, and I found Questlove.
Yep.
He's not a podcast; he's a podcaster. That'd be kind of weird.
That would be
Um,
weird. He's a walking, living, breathing podcast.
Questlove Supreme very recently ended its run. I'm sad to say that I've not listened to it, but as a result of this show, I will. I chose one of well, easily my favorite song by The Roots, Cool On, and it includes 1 second, so I don't have to do a stupid post facto. The rappers include Greg Porn and Truck North. Just a great song. It just flows. I I don't even know how to describe it beyond the fact that I love the song. The Roots still put out good music. Questlove is just a formidable cultural force. I mean, between
Yeah.
podcasts and books and everything else he does. I've actually read, I think, which one was it? Is it Hip Hop is History? I read one of
Yep.
his books, and so I'd like to read some of his others. But I am going to turn around and go listen to some Questlove Supreme after this. But I'd encourage our listeners to check out Cool On, which is a great, great song by The Roots.
Yeah, I love the Roots. I love him. I think that's a great choice. I actually saw that I didn't realize he was hosting a podcast either. I've read Music is History.
Mhm.
I think Hip Hop is History is a more recent book. I haven't read that yet, but he's a great writer. And
Yes.
I am actually interested in going back and maybe listening to a couple episodes of of his podcast as well, because I just think he's really bright. I think he's got very interesting perspective on things, and he's just really, eloquent in my opinion. But good song for the playlist, and you can find both of those songs on our season 8 playlist everywhere you stream your music. Third Song In is recorded in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and Joliet, Illinois. No, you know what? This time, Third Song In is recorded in Joliet, Illinois, and Chapel Hill, North Carolina.
The hell?
I know, I'm going to try to throw you off.
All right, I don't even know what to do. I'm leaving. You can email us at thirdsongin@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your ideas for future shows, any feedback on our most recent show or any of the shows we've done in the past. And there's a bunch of them out there. So thirdsongin@gmail.com.
I just want to interject. Please tell us about the podcast you like, because again, I think our draft, it was good for us, probably not for many other people. And I'd like some suggestions on other podcasts to listen to.
It's good for us because now we're in the top 10, baby. Please check out our website, thirdsonginpodcast.com. Also check out our As Mentioned site. That's where we include links to information about our many guests that we have.
Follow us, rate us, and review us wherever you listen to your podcasts. If you have stars, give them to us. Also, look for our playlists on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and YouTube Music. We have our companion playlist for every season, as well as special playlists that we curate with our guests as they come through. Please share those things, download them. All that kind of stuff helps. Thanks. I don't know why I said thanks. We're not done.
It still helps us, and you're thanking people.
I am. I am thankful, actually. So that's
there is nothing wrong with being thankful, even if it's misplaced or bad timing.
Which it is.
You can also subscribe to our blogs, which I should have mentioned are on our website. If you don't want to go to our website, which would really bum us out, you can still get information on our blogs by subscribing to them on Substack. Join us on our next episode where we'll interview artist and sculptor Dante DeBartolo. Very much looking forward to that one, as should you.
You've been listening to Third Song In with Chris Derrickson and Tom Polachek. Thanks for listening.
Join us on our next episode where we'll interview artist and sculptor Dante DeBartolo. Very much looking forward to that one, as should you.
You fuckers. If you're not looking forward to it, you're an asshole. What the fuck? Why was I talking about him?
Jason Segel?
Yeah. What the fuck was I talking about?
Some podcast? Movie?
Oh, thanks for the help. Really? It was about a podcast, you think? You son of a...
I wasn't really listening to you, so you can't blame me.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, because God knows how many times, in fact, I think you may have done it today, where we say, oh, before the end of the episode, I'll tell you what it is, and then we never fucking tell anybody anything. So.
Oh, I fucking told you who it was, man.
Did you? Was it Jason Segel?
It was Jason Segel.